You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, as you can all imagine, it is not the typical day that I do a show, which means that this is a what? Special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking. And as you can all imagine by the title, we can get right into it. I have a special guest on this special edition episode, because I just have to keep saying that because it's not a special election episode, it's a special edition episode, big difference. But I have with me none other than the state senator, Sharif Street, who is also running for Congress and also broke some news that actually he broke it on his terms, but we broke it here first, honestly speaking, in the last episode. But we have him today for this special interview right after the announcement that was confirmed by the state senator himself. And so we're happy to have him. He is at an undisclosed location in Pennsylvania talking to us for this special edition episode. Welcome to Ernestly Speaking for the first time, Senator Street.
Look, it's great to be here, and I'm glad to be on. Look, I appreciate your having me on. It's been a wild day.
Yeah, you are. I literally was telling people the other day that I don't actually have that many special guests. I'm kind of like the J. Cole of shows. We don't really do features unless it is something of the essence and the timeliness. And this is news making within itself. And I know a lot of people have been probably trying to get in contact with you since the statement. And so the news officially is that you have stepped down as chair of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. You've had that role.
Not quite. I announced that I'm going to be stepping down. Because what happens is we have to have an election. And upon the election of a new chair, I'll be stepping down. So I didn't just leave the party in a lurch. There will be an election on September 6th at the next state committee meeting, and we'll be electing a new chair.
All right. So you're still in the position for a week.
11, 12 days. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you got a little bit of time, but pretty much a lot of news sources have suggested, we broke it, this podcast, we broke it over the weekend, and pretty much, we got a tip and we followed some connections that this was coming. And I guess in your own words, why? Why are you doing it in your own words?
So I ran for chair of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party for one, rebuild the infrastructure. That's done. And really go back before I ran for chair.
So you
I ran for vice chair of the party.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, you was vice chair. You was vice chair.
Yeah, I ran for vice chair at a time when 18 months into my being a state senator, Democrats were down to only 16 seats in the state Senate. Republicans had a supermajority there because they had 34 out of 50. They were close to a supermajority in the state house. We only had 5 out of 18 U.S. members of Congress. And I was concerned that we needed to rebuild things. We've done a lot of that. We flipped the House. We're 2 seats away from taking over the Senate. We have 7 out of 17 congressional districts. And we've done much, much better. That being said, I'm now running for Congress. And I said the way we would do that is because we'd have a 67 county strategy. I would be in each and every county, and I have been, 50,000 miles a year. I said we needed to raise money. I did. First, the FEC regulations make it hard as a congressional candidate to raise money and this is not because people don't want to give or because I got to raise for too many things. Mm-hmm. It's simply because I'm not allowed to make asks in a way that I normally would make asks as a congressional, as a state chair. So that's one problem. The second big issue is time. People when you're running for office, it's like doing a job interview, and people want you to pay attention and be focused. And so I am paying attention and being focused to running for Congress, and I'm not going to be able to travel around the whole state and be present everywhere.
So you're basically not going to do a Malcolm Kenyatta per se. Like he was double
I'm
dipping.
not.
You don't have to comment. I'm just, maybe you can. I mean, it is in your. I know you're in North Philly, so some people can do both. They double dip, so they basically will run for a state seat and then run for a national seat simultaneously. You're not doing that. You're staying focused on one seat at a time, pretty much. I mean, would you say?
Right. I'm staying focused on what I need to do to get elected, to be a member of, to be elected as a member of Congress. And I want to do a good job in both. I pour my heart and soul into this party and believe it's doing well. And I want to pour my heart and soul in talking to people across the congressional district and making sure that I'm able to really give the people of the third congressional district they need. And at the same time, give the people of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party what they need as well. And part of that is a leader who can be focused on running the party. That being said, when people said that papers and everybody, I didn't know Dwight Evans was going to step down when he did. I said if he did, I wanted to run.
Okay.
And when he did, the party, there needed to be time for people in the party to have conversations about who would come next. There needed to be time for people in the party to look at it. So I wasn't just going to quit the day that the party that I announced for Congress. I didn't think that was fair to anyone.
Now, to be clear, how did you feel? And that's a good point that you bring up. And I wanted to ask you this: how did you feel when the press kind of did jump out with the conversation about it? Because I knew the rules personally as a reporter and as a journalist that hey, there's a process here. Eventually, there would have to be some type of transition to power because I know, according to FCC, that you can't juggle both simultaneously. But how did you feel that there was this sense of the press coming out early? Shapiro seemed to be, leading some of those conversations and charges on that discussion. Like it was almost like, for me, it was almost like a duh. Like, of course he's going to have to step down eventually, but it can't. It does. I mean, does it have to happen the next day? I mean, can there not be a nice succession plan?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the FEC doesn't say you can't do it. Like it wasn't like illegal to that acquire, but It just makes it really complicated. And so you're right. It contemplates that you won't do it long. There can be transition planning, and we want to do that. And not only that, this is an election. Members of state committee, I was elected, and the next person will have to be elected. So it'll have to be a special election, and that's what we're doing now. Certainly, people say, well, you served in the state senate. Well, one, the rules are different.
Correct.
And two, the second part of it is that I was already in the Senate in a seat that wasn't likely. I wasn't where I wasn't likely to face a lot of contested opposition because I had established myself. Now, once I've established myself in Congress, could I do something like this? Perhaps. The rules are more complicated.
Well, Bob Brady did it.
Right, but he did it, but it was a completely different situation.
Right.
One, FEC rules were different, when he did it in many ways. And two, he was pretty established.
Yeah. And so you're saying in this situation, I mean, you have only been in this role. You wasn't in this role for 30-something years.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so look, and the other thing is, during my tenure at the party, I raised most of the money. There wasn't a situation where there was an external committee raising the money. I had to do it.
And so, I want to get to some of that. So, you was in this role for a couple of years. It hadn't gone short of its own conversations and controversies. Everyone always remembers the political story, which, kind of framed like there was so much chaos in the state party. How do you feel about the state of the state party now before you leave? Like,
I want to tell you that, they called me lazy and stupid at a time when I was undefeated.
Wow.
I'd only been there. I had won every election in 22. I'd won every in 23. They called us. They said the party was in disarray and I was lazy and stupid. And at that moment, I had won every statewide election. And for Pennsylvania to go multiple years without losing an election, we're a swing state. That doesn't happen. That means we swing.
That's right.
But to go multiple years without losing any statewide elections was unprecedented for the Pennsylvania Democratic Party. And for them to say it was what it was. It was a national story. It was an outlet. A lot of people took shots. It's not a problem. I'm a big boy. I'm used to it. But I for the first Black chair,
right,
and to use the tropes of lazy and stupid when a guy's undefeated, I was not just upset for me, but I was upset about what they would.
Yeah, like basically you was upset about what how they would have framed it, the tropes. Yeah, the
tropes. They were advancing racial stereotypes. And I don't like the way that's going to affect kids. I got 5 kids and 6 grandkids, And I think about my kids and grandkids are going to have a certain measure of confidence because we're going to instill that in them. But a lot of young Black kids out there watching are like, listen, I mean, look, as soon as you get a person for them to look up to, they start tearing it down.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a big boy, I can handle it. Obviously, I did. But just call me lazy and stupid when things were going well. I mean, I took over the party at a time when I'm going back to vice chair, we were in disarray. We were losing everything, and we rebuilt the party into something that's strong.
So you would say that, you've kind of, left it in a good position. And it's interesting, you're the only Black party leader in this role in the state's history. And you're not only just a Black man, you're a Black Muslim man, you know, from Philadelphia, North Philly. It's like all of those elements, I think, made your tenure in that position unique. In ways that we may not see in the next your potential successor, which from our reporting here on Ernestly Speaking, people are saying that Eugene DePasquale is looking like the front runner, or we will say parentheses front runner, because again, there has to be an election, there has to be delegates, and other sources to follow my lead, and also saying that people are saying he is the likely person to succeed you. What is your thoughts about Eugene DePasquale potentially being the next
well, look, I think Eugene's a good guy. Okay. We're going to have some conversations. I like Eugene a lot, but I'll tell you something about his background. What's going on is that Eugene is a guy who came from humble beginnings. He had a dad that was struggling in a lot of ways, and Eugene is a guy. Eugene's a guy who is who's overcome a lot, and I think that a lot of Pennsylvanians can relate to that story. So I've got a lot. He served in the state house. He served as auditor general, and he's worked around. He and I've been friends for a while. So look, he's not. I can't make him the chair. No one can make him the chair. I think he's a good guy, and certainly think he deserves real consideration. State committee members will do that, and I think he's going to make his case to the members.
So it's not that it's. I have to ask. The Governor Josh Shapiro. He wasn't the biggest supporter of you. Many years ago when you ran for the chair position. Have you spoken to him, recently in regards to your
we've been working on getting SEPTA funding done.
Okay.
We work on a lot of things. I'll tell you this, Ed Rendell didn't support my father when he ran for re-election and for council and ultimately became council president. My dad didn't support Rendell in his primary for mayor, but ultimately their partnership, when Rendell was mayor, my dad was council president, yielded some of the best results to really turn Philadelphia around because they were both committed to it. I believe that Josh and I have worked well together. We have certainly helped turn the Democratic Party of Pennsylvania around, and we've now flipped the House, which was unprecedented. We're only 2 seats away from flipping the state Senate, and did that and maintained that momentum even while the national party was falling apart and everything was going red. Last year, didn't lose any ground in either chamber, and this year have already added the seats in the state Senate. So I think the team, the governor and I worked well together in terms of getting things done, and we'll continue to work well together when, God willing, I'm in Congress and as well, because we'll bring back more federal. We'll work to fight this Donald Trump from taking away resources, and God willing, when we get a real president, it might be Josh, might be Governor Shapiro, president. I'd love to be sitting on the floor while President Shapiro gives the State of the Union. That certainly is a possibility.
Okay. So you'll say, I guess the metaphor, because I for those listeners who don't know this, but Sharif's father is the Honorable John Street, the second Black man to ever be elected, Black person to ever be elected mayor of Philadelphia, following Wilson Goode. And during that time, what he's referring to, for those who don't know history, Ed Rendell, who later become Pennsylvania governor, they did not have the best relation. They weren't besties, but in spite of their difference of opinions, were able to, come together on common ground to get things done for the betterment of Philadelphia and, of course, Pennsylvania. And I guess in many ways,
and over time they became very close friends. Over time,
but
it didn't start out that way.
It definitely did not start out that way. I know that for a fact. And so I guess in many ways you're making this interesting metaphor or this comparison between that relationship and dynamic and Shapiro and yourself. That definitely
Yeah, I
different
mean,
opinions, and
it's different,
it is
but
different.
there's some parallels. And what I can tell you is, listen, politics and being effective is about working with people from different backgrounds and bringing them together. Being effective. Look, I know that America needs that now. People of the third congressional district need that.
Right.
I know that we need to make sure that we can restore these Medicaid cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them won't go into effect until 2028. And we're going to make sure that I want to work to make sure those Medicaid cuts are returned around. We got people in the streets dying. And we got a fool that drove from Las Vegas all the way to New York City and then went in the wrong thing, used the gun and started shooting people. We need a federal assault weapons ban. We need federal gun control to keep us safe. There are so many issues. We got to fund our hospitals. School infrastructure needs to be funded. $4.5 billion for the Philadelphia School District to redo it. State doesn't got that kind of money. City doesn't have that kind of money. School district doesn't have it, but you know what? The U.S. government could do it. And if we put that kind of money in infrastructure, rebuilding schools across America, we put people to work.
Right.
Those are things that people from across the aisle and across the spectrum can fight for. Those are things that are progressive ideas, but they're things that we can actually get done.
Right. So let's get to that. You have left one chapter of your political career, an interesting chapter that is in many ways, no one can claim that in this type of environment, right? Like you have an interesting, like a lot of people can't say that they have been the state party chair. Like that is a unique chapter in your political history. Now Congress, right? This seems to be where you're at. You're putting some skin in the game because a lot of folks who are currently running, I don't really know what sacrifices they're making to show to the public at large at this way that they're committing. It's almost like a resign to run. Like, when people run for mayor, your father knows.
Well, for me, it was a resign to run. I had to give up a pretty big position to run.
You did, but that's the thing. You had to do that, right? But that doesn't happen oftentimes outside the city council world. So Congress, why Congress? There's been talks in the past of you had aspirations to run for Senate many years ago, and that didn't happen. And why Congress right now? Yeah.
So look, the U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, every bill that passes the House has to go through the Senate and vice versa. Yeah. So it's not that different. Look, but what I will say is this: I think this seats the right opportunity because I think it puts me in a position where I can have a district where I can I'll speak to the values of that community. It is my home district, and it is a place, and it gives us the opportunity to look at the big scale things that need to be done, like comprehensive gun control that needs to be done, so people can't just come in, bring guns from everywhere and start killing people. Like fixing Medicaid, which dollars are used from everything from violence reduction programs to drug and alcohol prevention. Those are the kinds of things that need to be done, and we can do that from Congress. And secondly, America needs a level of healing and needs somebody to, fight Donald Trump.
Right.
And take him on, because we kind of stopped that fool in the White House, but then not hate everybody who's different than us. I learned that, there are rural farmers that want the same thing. They might have voted for Trump because they went for the okie doke, but that doesn't mean that all of them are bad people. Mm-hmm. And so we got to be able to work with people that are different than us while fight for our values at the same time. I've done that in the state Senate, and I believe I can do that in Congress. And look, I always run to, some people wanted to pick on the little guy and fight the little guy in school. I was the little guy who wanted to fight the big guy. And look, where's the biggest fight there? To fight the orange menace. I called them orange toe fungus. Hopefully, with the voters of Pennsylvania will help me be the antiseptic to cure America's toe fungus.
Okay. But to get to that fight, right? To get to the fight from getting to Congress and doing that, you're going to have another fight. Looks like there are challengers. There are talks of more challenges potentially depending on the outcome. Because you talk about September 6th, and I want to get people back. September 6th is a special election that is related to the state party.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talks of a potential another special election. But you want to let the listeners know the clarity on that, because this word special. It's a special edition. We doing the special elections. What's going on?
So right now, Congressman Evans said he's not running for re-election. So I'm running for Congress next year. Right. If he were to quit, which he has not done and not said he would do, Then there would be the parties would each pick a nominee. I used to be the guy who would sign that affidavit and certify it, and then it would go to the Department of State, and then the nominees, the Democratic nominee running against the Republican nominee, and so the primary would be done by the committee people.
In the city or the state level?
Committee people at the city level would actually be the ones who pick the nominee. They would submit that; it'll be ratified by the executive committee or state committee. But that's just a ratification. It's the local people to make the decision. So the ward leaders and committee people in the district would make that decision. And then Chairman Brady would send something over to the state party. He'll send it. They'd send it to the Department of State.
So I heard, and just doing the math, the rules say that a special election has to be declared by 90 days before the general election.
No, it's the rule is 60.
60 days. Correct, 60 days, sorry. 60 days. I'm thinking 90 for something else, but that's, you've already people have put in their paperwork. 60 days. So 60 days is November 4th is the general election.
About 11 days from now.
Correct. We are we on the same math here?
We're on the same math. There's a window where there still could be
11 days.
Special election.
What day is that? What day is that deadline?
I believe that's September. It's either, depends on how you count. It's either September 4th or 3rd, and the people debate whether you count the actual day of the election. I would, if it were going to happen, I'd be more comfortable with 3rd. But but it could be the 4th, depending on how you count it. But look, what I would say is this: I'm not, whether there is a special election or regular election, either way, there'll be a primary election next year, and I'm focused on making sure that the people of Pennsylvania select me on May of the 3rd Tuesday in May next year.
Right.
And if I get it sooner, I would be happy.
Right, but but let's back up a little bit. There is significance to the difference between, you've been in politics, you know this. There's a difference between the March primary the spring primary next year compared to if there's a special election, because in many ways, the amount of money that needs to be spent to, it would be different. It's likely that the winner of that would have an advantage.
Right. And it could, and instead of there would be a ton of candidates, there would likely be a smaller field, which would save the party a lot of money.
Right.
That could be used to fight Republicans.
Correct.
So certainly, I think that there's some merit in that, but that totally rests on whether Congressman Evans is ready to move on. I respect whatever decision he makes.
Right. And let's say that, there are some people who, from close sources that I've spoken to for Ernestly Speaking and beyond, that have said that they're waiting to see what happens next week. There's a lot of things happening next week. There's a possibility. Well, one confirmed thing is that you will be stepping down next week. That's a fact. We know that. You said it. It's confirmed. Whether Eugene DePasquale gets it, there's a strong likelihood he will, but that's not been confirmed because the voters got to confirm that the members of the party, the state party got to determine that. But then there's this other third thing, right? There's a special week next week that possibly there is a likelihood, potentially, we don't know, yada, 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 that there could also be the suggestion of a special election potentially if Congressman Dwight Evans decides. Now, a lot of candidates are right now, there's only been like 2 other candidates, major candidates or others. There is state representatives.
6 of them.
It's 6 of them. You know what? Let me not be rude. I said major, so that matters to me. Major.
So I know. There's 6. There are 2 elected officials, and there are 4 other people.
Okay, so one of them is Chris Rabb. Who's the other one?
So there are. I don't want to mess people's names up, but there are two college professors, a doctor, and another government worker. So there are 6.
Yes,
I don't know those folks as well, but I know Chris Rabb. Obviously, we serve in the General Assembly together.
Right, and so he's a state rep. You're a state senator, and there's other potential of other candidates that might come, and so I don't name them because if they ain't declared, it don't matter. If you're not putting your neck out there and saying it don't matter. You're not. What's interesting is you decided to run whether or not there's a special election or not. You're going to run regardless. You're in now, regardless.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm running. My position was that I wanted to I wanted to respect Congressman Evans. He's had a great legacy.
Yes.
But beyond that, I wanted to move forward and run. And look, Ernest, I want to give 2 more warning. My wife is looking at me. I promised to spend some time with her.
Totally.
But I do want to say this. Listen, I'm out there. I'm running, and I appreciate it. And look, can you give me one last question or what to wrap up?
Yeah, sure. I just want to know, what do you want your supporters to know? Because some people took this heavy. They don't know what does this mean.
Look,
What do you want them to know?
I want my supporters to know that the work to build the party goes on. The party's bigger than one man. It's bigger than just me. It's bigger. The movement we built will continue. I will be a part of that. With your vote, support, hard work, I can do that by taking this to another level as a congressman. But whatever position I serve, whether that's as a state senator, whether that's just as Sharif from North Philly, I will continue to do that work. I've been doing it my whole life. And I will tell you this, I believe that together, just as we pulled together the people of the 3rd Senate District, and when they're able to leverage that to then pull together people of Pennsylvania, if you give me a chance, we knock on enough doors, we talk to enough people, we appear on enough podcasts with superstars like Ernest Owens, we will be able to, I'll be able to win this congressional district. And then we can take this a message on the road just like we did before. We can talk to people in Atlanta, talk to people in Nevada, talk to people in Ohio, talk to people in North Carolina, in those swing states. And we can not only win back the House of Representatives, but you know what? We can win back the White House and bring some sanity to America. That's why I'm doing this. And then what will that mean? Safer schools. It will mean safer communities. It'll mean jobs for people in the hood. And guess what? No one's going to save us but us. And to Eugene, my friend, who's a Star Wars fan, you know what? He says, may the force be with you. We are the force, y'all. And guess what? We just got to believe.
Well, you've heard that long extended campaign commercial from from State Senator Sharif, who's also running for Congress. Thank you so much for coming on this special edition episode of Ernestly Speaking. I imagine a lot of people are going to be talking about this interview and some of the things that was shared. We'll be following you and other candidates on the campaign trail. Any other candidates who are interested, serious candidates. Let me say,
and Ernest,
serious.
I know you were with the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists.
Yes.
I also thought it was important that when I did this interview, after about leaving chair, I did it with a Black journalist on my way out.
That matters.
Because guess what? If we want our story told, we need to make sure we support the people that are telling it.
That very much so matters. Well, thank you again for coming on. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you have a big evening ahead and a lot of other things, but thank you all for listening. And as always, be well and be best.
Be well. Thanks. Peace. God bless.
Thank you. Earnestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Earnestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.